When we last compared the Samsung Galaxy M30 to the Xiaomi Redmi Note 7 Pro, we had a clear winner, and that was the Redmi Note 7 Pro. It won because it had a powerful Qualcomm Snapdragon 675 SoC, all-day battery life, and good cameras. But getting your hands on the Xiaomi Redmi Note 7 Pro isn't as easy, which means that you guys will be looking at new smartphones to pick from. And naturally, the Samsung Galaxy A50 kind of pops up in that search. So we went ahead and compared the Galaxy A50 to the Redmi Note 7 Pro to see which one is the one for you. The first thing that a lot of you guys look at in a smartphone is the design and the build quality. And these two differ when it comes to build quality. So let's talk about the Samsung Galaxy A50 first. The review unit that we have here has a grey color with an iridescent finish, and well, that gets a lot of attention. The phone is also slim and light to hold compared to the Redmi Note 7 Pro. But the Redmi Note 7 Pro has Corning Gorilla Glass 5 at the back, which should make it scratch resistant to some extent. It's slightly heavier, and that might be a turn off for a few people. The button placement is identical on these smartphones, and we found that on both phones you will have to stretch a little to reach the volume buttons. Both phones have a water drop notch, but the one on the Samsung Galaxy A50 is smaller. Also, the Galaxy A50 has got thinner bezels all around. What a lot of guys will notice first is that the Redmi Note 7 Pro, well, it has a rear-mounted fingerprint scanner, whereas the Galaxy A50 is bare. That's because it has an in-display fingerprint scanner that lets you place your finger on the display and unlock the smartphone. It's a cool way of unlocking the phone. Thankfully, both phones have the modern USB Type-C port and retain 3.5mm headphone jacks. The advantage with the Redmi Note 7 Pro is that it has an IR blaster which can be used to control IR-based appliances. Overall, in terms of design, the Samsung Galaxy A50 is sleek and lightweight, but the Redmi Note 7 Pro has got premium materials and has that Corning Gorilla Glass 5 at the back. The spec sheets of these smartphones reveal that these two are completely different devices. For instance, the Samsung Galaxy A50 has a 6.4-inch Super AMOLED Full HD Plus display, whereas the Redmi Note 7 Pro has got a 6.3-inch LTPS panel. Both displays are good to look at, but it is the Samsung's Super AMOLED panel that produces the better output. Each manufacturer has taken a different approach when it comes to the processor. The Samsung Galaxy A50 is powered by the Exynos 9610 SoC, which is an octa-core chip. This particular processor is paired with 4GB of RAM and 64GB of internal storage. You do have a higher variant with 6GB of RAM, but the storage remains unchanged at 64GB. Samsung has priced the lower variant at 19,990 rupees, while the higher variant will set you back by 22,990 rupees. The Xiaomi Redmi Note 7 Pro, on the other hand, is powered by Qualcomm Snapdragon 675 SoC, which is also an octa-core processor. You do get two RAM variants. First one has 4GB of RAM with 64GB of internal storage. The other that we have here has 6GB of RAM and 128GB of internal storage. Pricing is a little conservative compared to the Galaxy A50. So the base variant of the Redmi Note 7 Pro will be 13,999 rupees, while the higher variant is 16,999 rupees. If you want to expand storage further, you have a dedicated micro SD card slot on the Galaxy A50, which will accept cards up to 512GB. On the Redmi Note 7 Pro, storage is expandable as well, but via the hybrid SIM tray slot, which means that you have to sacrifice the second SIM. Storage is expandable up to 256GB only. Both phones have a 4000 mAh battery, but you get a 15-watt charger with the Samsung Galaxy A50, whereas Redmi only ships a 10-watt charger with the Redmi Note 7 Pro. Interestingly, the Redmi Note 7 Pro has support for Qualcomm's Quick Charge 4.0. but you'll have to buy a compatible charger separately. In terms of software, you get Android 9 Pie on both these smartphones. Samsung ships the Galaxy A50 with One UI on top of Pie, whereas the Redmi Note 7 Pro has MIUI 10 running on top. We found both the phones came with some apps pre-installed, and both of them had spammy notifications. You can go ahead and disable most of them and uninstall those bloatware apps. Both phones are powerful enough to handle day-to-day tasks without breaking into a sweat. the Galaxy A50 and the Redmi Note 7 Pro also multitask at the same pace. We found that the Redmi Note 7 Pro is a little faster when it came to launching apps, but you're only going to notice them when you are doing it side by side. Standalone, the Galaxy A50 is also fast enough. When it comes to security and unlocking these two smartphones, the Galaxy A50 uses that in-display fingerprint scanner, whereas the Redmi Note 7 Pro relies on that traditional capacitive fingerprint scanner that's positioned at the back. We found that the A50 was a little slower compared to the Redmi Note 7 Pro here. These phones also have face recognition, and when you use the face recognition to unlock these two smartphones, we found that these two were pretty neck and neck. We played PUBG Mobile to check the gaming performance on these two smartphones. The Redmi Note 7 Pro is quicker than the Galaxy A50 to load the game up. After playing PUBG Mobile for close to 15 minutes with graphics set to balanced and frame rate set to high on both these phones, the battery on the Redmi Note 7 Pro dropped by 5% while the Galaxy A50 dropped by 4%. We noticed that the Redmi Note 7 Pro was slightly warmer than the Galaxy A50 after gaming. Now that we are done talking about PUBG Mobile and gaming on both these smartphones, let's talk about battery life. Both these phones will last you about a day easily, but we found that the Redmi Note 7 Pro is slightly more efficient and has lower idle drain than the Galaxy A50. Even in our HD video loop test, the Galaxy A50 managed 14 hours and 59 minutes. On the other hand, the Redmi Note 7 Pro, this went on for 19 hours and 23 minutes. Now let's talk about cameras. The Redmi Note 7 Pro has got a dual camera setup at the back, which consists of a 48 megapixel primary sensor and a 5 megapixel depth sensor. Whereas the Galaxy A50, it's got a triple camera setup at the back with a 25 megapixel primary sensor, a 5 megapixel depth sensor and an 8 megapixel ultra wide sensor. A lot of people are also curious, how are the selfie cameras? So the Galaxy A50 has got a 25 megapixel selfie shooter, whereas the Redmi Note 7 Pro has a 13 megapixel selfie shooter. We clicked multiple photos in different lighting conditions to see how these phones perform. In daylight shots, we noticed that the Redmi Note 7 Pro manages better details and objects at a distance are also sharp. The Galaxy A50 lags behind slightly but manages to do HDR better than the Redmi phone. Also, the wide-angle sensor on the Galaxy A50 does give it an edge over the Redmi Note 7 Pro while clicking landscapes. Both phones click good macros and preserve a lot of detail, but we prefer the bokeh effect that the Redmi Note 7 Pro manages. The Galaxy A50 delivers punchier colors in comparison thanks to the scene optimizer. In low light, the Galaxy A50 produces a brighter image, but at the cost of blowing out the highlights. Redmi Note 7 Pro manages slightly better, but has a noisy image. We clicked a few portraits on both phones with beautification disabled. The Galaxy A50 gives you the option to set the level of blur, while the Redmi Note 7 Pro does not have this feature. Instead, Xiaomi offers different studio lighting effects. We found the Redmi Note 7 Pro metered light better and produced better details than the Galaxy A50. In selfies, the Redmi Note 7 Pro couldn't get the color tone right but managed significantly better details than the Galaxy A50. We found that selfies clicked from the Galaxy A50 were soft in comparison. Video recording maxes out at 1080p for the Galaxy A50, whereas the Redmi Note 7 Pro, well, it can record 4K as well as 1080p at 60 fps. Stabilization is available on both these smartphones and you will get a steady output. The Redmi Note 7 Pro gets an advantage here since it can record at higher resolutions as well as higher frame rates. Clearly, the Redmi Note 7 Pro inches ahead of the Galaxy A50. These smartphones are not in the exact same price range as the Galaxy A50 commands a premium over the Redmi Note 7 Pro. The difference between these two, however, isn't as big as it was when we compared the Redmi Note 7 Pro to the Galaxy M30. Samsung still offers a better Super AMOLED display panel and in-display fingerprint scanner, and the software is also up to date. The Redmi Note 7 Pro offers a more powerful processor and has better cameras. You'll also save a couple of thousands by picking this over the Galaxy A50. But getting your hands on a Redmi Note 7 Pro isn't easy as it is available in limited quantities on flash sale only. But if you don't want to participate in such sales and you can pay that extra premium over the Redmi Note 7 Pro, the Galaxy A50 do just fine. So that was our comparison between the Samsung Galaxy A50 and the Redmi Note 7 Pro. So which one would you pick? Let us know in the comment section below. And as always, for all things tech, Stay tuned to gadgets360.com.